Hi, I'm George Maestri, and today we're going to take a look at animation. And specifically, we're going to take a look at a scene that looks somewhat like this. So I'm going to go ahead and play this animation. And as you can see, it's what I would call a construction animation. And what it does is it basically just fades on or wipes on all of the different parts of the building. And it just allows you to see how this particular object or structure was built. Now, these sorts of animations are very useful, so let's take a look at how to create them using section planes. So I have a scene here called constructionanim.skip. And this is the scene that we had before. Now I've organized this scene into groups. As you can see, we have a group for the roof, for the walls, for the floor, and for the foundation. And if you remember, these are all the things that I animated in the previous scene. So let's go ahead and use section planes to animate them. Now, section planes can be accessed through Tools, Section Plane, and if I do this in the scene itself, I can snap this section plane to any axis. Now, if I snap this to the green axis, you'll see that it basically allows me to section the entire building, and that's because it's sectioning the entire scene, and it will basically expand to section everything in that scene. Now, this is not what we want. We want to section in individual parts of this building. So I'm going to have to delete this. So I'm going to select this and delete it. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to add section planes to the groups that we've created in the scenes. And this will create the effect that we want. So I'm going to go ahead and select this foundation group and double click on it and go back into section plane. Now, when this group is open and I add in that section plane, it will place that section plane into the group. And when I do, notice how this comes up a lot smaller than the other one. And now this is only sectioning the foundation, which is exactly what I want. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and select the floor, the roof, and the walls. So I'm doing Control Select, and I'm just going to go ahead and hide all of these because we really want to just deal with the foundation here. So I'm going to select my foundation group, double click on it, and go back to that section plane. Now I'm going to need two section planes. I'm going to have one section plane here, which makes everything invisible. And then I'm going to have this second section plane here, which reveals everything. So the first section plane we need to create is here. So I'm going to go ahead and create this section plane and place it into a scene. So let's go ahead and create a scene. Now this scene matches the visual state of this project. So all of the floor, the roof, and the walls are hidden, and we have this section plane. So now that we have this, we can actually add in another scene and another section plane. So I'm going to go ahead and add a scene in, and then add in one more section plane. And I want to snap this to the green axis. And go ahead and use my arrow keys. I think it's the left arrow. And when I bring that in, notice how we now have two sections. We have this one here and this one here. Now, if I right-click over this, notice how Active Cut is off for this one. If I highlight this one, right-click, you'll see that Active Cut is on. So this is the active section cut. And now I can move that to wherever I want. So I'm going to actually move it out here. And then I'm going to right-click over this scene and do Update. I'm going to update everything in the scene. And so now we have two states for this scene. In scene 1, that first section plane is active. In scene 2, the second one is active. And now you can see how when I switch between these, it animates the section. Okay, so this is great. So now that we understand this, we can actually use this for all of the other groups or layers in the scenes. So now I'm going to go ahead and select the floor group, and let's go ahead, right-click, unhide. And now we're going to create a new scene for this. So I'm going to go ahead and hit plus for this scene. And we should have a scene here and then a scene here. So notice how this is hidden here. it's revealed here. So now let's go ahead and add in our section planes. And the process is pretty much the same. So I'm going to double click on this, Tools, Section Plane. And again, let's go ahead and snap to green, highlight that, and move it. And then we're going to add in one more scene and one more section plane. Now, as soon as you add this in, it automatically makes this second one the active section plane. And so once I do that, I can hit Update, Update, and now we can go to this scene here, double click on that, double click on this one, double click on this one. It's not working. So let's go ahead and double click on this. Now, when you go back to your scenes, sometimes your section planes will disappear, and that's kind of a little bug in SketchUp. So one of the things I can do to actually reveal them is just to add in a third section plane. So I'm just going to go ahead and add that in, and notice how these ones highlight. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that and select this section plane here, make it active in scene 3, and update it. So now we should have scene 3 and scene 4. And so now we've actually got the basis of this animation. But notice how when scene 3 comes on, it's actually animating off. And that's not really what we want. So I'm going to do one more little thing here. I'm going to select that floor group. I'm going to right-click over it and hide it, and then update that scene. So now we've got no foundation. Scene 2 is foundation on. Scene 3 sets us up for scene 4, which animates on those floor joists. Okay, so hopefully this is making sense. And let's just go ahead and do one more so that way we can really understand the process. So I'm going to go ahead and add in one more scene. And this time I'm going to select the walls and unhide them. And let's select the walls, double click on them, and add in our section plane. Now this time I want the section plane to snap to the blue axis. So I'm going to go ahead and snap that to blue. And again, I want to make sure that this has completely made the other object disappear. And then we're going to right click over this and do Update. And then we're going to add in one more. Scene 6, we're going to add in another section plane. Again, snap to blue. Move it. And right-click and hit Update. And that should go. Yep, there it goes. Now again, we're going to have that same problem when we go from scene 4 to scene 5. You can see how that animates off, but we can do the exact same thing we did before. So I'm going to select that walls group, hide it, and then update that scene. So now, go from scene 4 to scene 5. Scene 5 sets us up for scene 6. And now that we understand the process, we can do it for the roof. And I'm going to skip over that. And let's take a look at the final. And as you can see, again, we've got the exact same thing. So let's just go through the process. So scene 1 has that section plane off. Scene 2 goes to the second section plane. Scene 3 turns on the floor joists and sets up the section plane for scene 4, which animates on. And then again, we have a blank scene, which is scene 5. Scene 6 brings it on, and then 7 and 8. And then I just added an additional scene at the end just to give it some space for when it plays back. So as you can see, this is a really nice way to do these sorts of animations. So remember, you're going to have 2 section planes per layer and 2 scenes per layer. And then you're just going to animate those section planes between the layers. So hopefully this gives you a good idea as to how to create these sorts of effects.